Hey guys, I'm happy to be back with some more Spirit of the Church invasions. And right off the bat, you can see here we've got a host. He's by himself. He's acting pretty aggressively. I point down there, I did not mean to do that. I accidentally forgot that I had rebound some of my shortcuts and I meant to wave to him. I felt a little bit bad about that. But you see he's being kind of aggressive. But the mistake I see from most hosts is not being nearly aggressive enough. They keep rolling and rolling and rolling and then just burn through their Estus. This guy's actually swinging and he's not that great, but just by virtue of the fact that he keeps swinging and that red-hilted halbert's interrupting my greatsword swing, he's already got me down to almost half health. And I wouldn't say he's been playing especially strategically or especially well. He's just, he's swinging his weapon. And here he starts to give into a little bit of a panic rolling, and I'm chasing him down, and as soon as he Estises, he ends up, I make him give it right back when I attack him. And we do this a few more times. He keeps rolling, and then I think here he kind of comes to his senses in a minute and decides that this isn't really working out for him. And he turns around and attacks me, and I think he's emboldened by the success he's had here, and he realizes that's a much better strategy. So now I'm down at like a third of my health, and I momentarily considered healing, but I really feel like that's just a little unfair to a single host. Like if he plays well enough to beat me, then he earned that victory. But I do bust out some of the avalanches here. And he's doing a respectable job here of splitting his attentions between me and the Painted Guardian. I think the Painted Guardian will only heal a set number of times if you let them. Here it looks like he's out of Estus. I'm not sure how he came into the fight with so few Estus. But here he very narrowly kills me. And I think I've got a kind of close-up of this. Or a replay rather, because it was so very close. Here you can kind of see it in slow motion. Just watch. He hits me with the first R1, which guarantees the second. He's mid-swing in the second, and the Painted Guardian comes out of nowhere and interrupts him. Literally fractions of a second away from having beaten me. That was a good fight. So anytime I come into one of these fights and I see that they've got Pestilent Mercury sitting there, I'm always a little wary, because to me it means somebody's planning ahead, whether it's a party that's working together, it's password summoned, or maybe just one of the phantoms has a plan. It shows some forward thinking ahead. So I know I gotta be a bit more careful. The hyper armor that you get is typically, actually I'll comment on the hyper armor here in a minute. So I saw that when I swung at his shield the first time, the lightning orbs hit his shield, and whenever that happens, those lightning orbs must do a lot of stamina damage. So I took a chance on the parry and I swung a second time, and sure enough I broke his guard. So those lightning orbs are really a huge help, and I'll show some more later where they really help me out. But from a hyper armor perspective, when you play against a single host, it seems to play like any normal PvP match would. Your hyper armor, poise, what have you, is the same as it normally would be depending on your armor and weapon. But as soon as you add a phantom, you get extra defense, extra poise, and it not only is like a buff to the boss, but it fundamentally changes the way this fight plays. I mean, it turns into a completely different fight. My really strong recommendation to anyone out there trying this fight is, unless you're really bad at PvP, play this fight solo, and above all, do not summon patches. Summoning patches, I think, is just the worst thing that you could possibly do. Either play it by yourself, or bring in a whole army of phantoms. Just don't bring in patches, and again, keeping it to just the host. Make sure that the Spirit of the Church kind of plays by normal PvP rules. They don't get any extra kind of buff, they don't get any extra poise, and that makes the fight way easier to win. You'll also notice that when it's a single host, they do a tremendous amount of damage when they hit me. I mean, a single combo from like a greatsword takes off half my health. That was a fun match. I really love the matches against multiple opponents. And here I've got a quick video, or rather a quick clip of me actually playing against the Spears of the Church with one of my characters I just took into New Game Plus. This is actually the guy that's playing as a Spear of the Church in all the clips you've seen. One thing that's kind of interesting is when you start the fight, you can't buff or do anything. You're just kind of locked in by Argo's commentary, which is kind of frustrating. So if you want to buff or do anything like that, you have to do it before you enter the boss room, but then you end up burning a good 25 seconds on your buff just waiting for him to drone on. I don't know if they did that on purpose or if it's just kind of a side effect. You can't click through his dialogue or anything. You could buff right at this point, but you really want to try and backstab this guy. I kind of whiff it here because I went for it too early. But my priority right now is dispatching this Painted Guardian. And you can see 2 combos. He's almost dead. Just stay on him, and he's pretty easy to get rid of before the spear comes in. Unfortunately, we swing at the same time. He takes off like 2/3 of my health. Now his stamina's blown though, and I've got the Hornet Ring on, and a single R1 and a Hornet Ring backstab is enough to kill him. So really, guys, go in by yourself. Don't bring a bunch of Phantoms in with you. You'll have way more success. And if a lot of the Spears are like me, they're not necessarily ready for that. You kind of get spoiled by all those poise and defense buffs, and so rare to fight against a single host. You're not really ready for it, and you don't get all those buffs you're necessarily expecting. This fight was kind of funny. I stayed on this host so bad. Like, I put so much pressure on him. I just followed him and followed him. Incidentally, this is a good example of why when you're chasing somebody, you do not want to be locked on. Staying locked onto that host is what screwed that up and why I wasn't able to chase him down properly. But you know, I just really stay on him. At least 3 or 4 times I had him very, very close to death. And I'm actually using my lightning arrows instead of my explosive arrows because I'm almost out. And I haven't gotten far enough in the campaign yet to send Grey Rat out for his 3rd and final trip to be able to unlock the explosive bolts from the Handmaiden. So I'm down to like 40, so I'm trying to be real careful with them. If I'd hit him with explosive bolts instead of lightning bolts, I probably would have killed him. The main advantage of explosive is you get that AoE if you just kind of aim at their feet. And especially with the Avalon, when you get 3 arrows, the likelihood of hitting them with at least one of the explosions from the arrows as they roll is really high. I thought for sure that was going to be a roll catch. And you can see those orbs stun locking him. Ideally, if you're chasing a host down and you've got those orbs, you don't even have to swing. Just let the orbs do the work, because if you stay on them, they can't heal and they know it. And if you swing, they can roll out and then have enough time to Estus. But if you let those orbs do the work, you can just keep staying right on them. And a kind of ideal case is if you do go to swing right before you do, the orbs hit them and stun lock them so you can then follow through with your attack. I have not been able to figure out a way to know when the orbs are going to fire. I'm not sure like kind of what the rule is that dictates how those fire off. And I'm kind of screwing around here, but I see him going for the Painted Guardian, so I don't want him to kill him just yet. But I know I mentioned in my previous video, those lightning orbs are a huge value. And props to the host there for getting in and killing the Painted Guardian. But Patches is just worthless, man. Adding him to the fight gives me such a poison defense buff, but you don't really get much in return. He's really easy to avoid. He doesn't apply much in the way of pressure. You know, all he really is just increasing my poison defense. So definitely, in my view, not a trade worth making. I mean, just look at that. Look at all that poise I've got. It's crazy. Also surprised at how few people actually managed to kill the Painted Guardian before I come into their world. When there's 3 and 4 phantoms and hosts, they usually have them killed, but when it's just a host and a phantom, they almost never have that Painted Guardian killed, and it's such a critical part of being successful in this fight. And this is where that greatsword just sings. This guy's doing a really good job of spacing me. I was really impressed by his play here. Unfortunately for him, the Warden Twin Blades, or the Cell Swords, I'm not sure which those are not a good matchup against the Greatsword, especially when I've got that buff to my poise. This cracks me up. These guys all come rolling in. They get a face full of spears. One thing I don't do anywhere near enough is to actually use that spear attack myself, and mine's upgraded to Divine, so it's really powerful. And I've had a few conversations on Reddit about the right use case for these. I've seen some people say they're really good for applying buffs, or they're good for splitting a host from his phantoms. And on the occasion that I think to use them, I have had some success with it. But I should probably make an effort to try to use these more, or to try to use that particular item more. I have tried using the daggers, but I don't really like them very much. They don't do much damage. I have trouble hitting people. You can see these guys are doing a lot of damage to me. They're doing a good job of staying on top of me. They seem to have a good mix of like weapons and weapon types. And I'm able to chase the host down with both phantoms still around, which is kind of a failure on the phantom's part. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for checking in. I'll talk to you soon.